All I can say is absolute madness. I have these two pieces of paper with me in case you're wondering what it is. It's not like Michael Vaughan at the start of the show going correct and incorrect to Sean Pollock's quiz. It's the notes that I had made for Delhi's victory and just trying to put things in perspective. Of course, tear that up, throw it away, goes in the bin. You never know what's going to happen till the last ball is bowled. That's the beauty of this tournament. And yet again, we've had a humdinger. It's gone down to the wire. And a team that looked out of it, 15 minutes earlier, have come back in and they've won a game. And this is the team who lost a game from a winning position just the other day. Great redemption. And one more bit I'll add before we go to our experts. Chris Morris the other day denied a single by Sanju Samson because he wanted to finish it on his own. Today, he was the man on strike, wasn't giving anyone a single. Big six to finish with, and he was the man justifying a little bit of the moolah. Here we are on Cricbuzz Live, brought to you in association with our fantasy partners, My 11 Circle, to try and put things in some perspective. Good evening, Michael Vaughan, Sean Pollock. Who wants to go first, Michael? Have you caught your breath yet?
Well, I think Sean should go first because South Africa have just won the game. So, Sean, the way to you. Go on.
Yeah, I'm happy for him. Shame. I think he would have been feeling the pressure after getting that big price tag on his back. And, you want to win games. And the fact that he's come to the good win, it did look like they were down and out, is vitally important for him. I think it's huge for their team, particularly in a week where they get told the news that Stokes is basically done and dusted for the tournament. You can easily hit a downward spiral as a team unit when you get that kind of news, and to sneak over the line. I think Delhi will be disappointed. I think there's been case in point the last three games. Basically, every team that's been on the losing side would have, with 6 or 7 overs to go, would have thought they were going to absolutely cruise it. So it's the nature of the IPL, it's the nature of T20 cricket, and that's why so many people enjoy it, because it can be so thoroughly entertaining.
Yeah, we'll come to Michael in a moment. For all of you who have caught your breaths, have a look at what exactly transpired in Mumbai. Typically, these are the kind of 140, 150 games that end up being relatively low-scoring thrillers. In Chennai, this would be a high-scoring thriller. But in Mumbai, definitely about 40 or 50 runs below par, 147 for 8. Delhi start bowling out of their skins. Top order blown away. Centurion from the other day gone. Big Joss Butler goes, and everything seems in disarray. David Miller's come into the side for Ben Stokes. He provides some brilliance, but then he gets out just when you think he could take them over the line. And then you've got a non-batsman, with all due respect to Jaydev Unadgat, who comes in, hits a 6 off Chris Woakes, and then gives Morris the belief. So much happening there. At the end, it's just the numbers that don't tell you the whole story, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, it's the IPL, so you pretty much guarantee it's going down to the last over. It just seems to be the story. I'm delighted for Rajasthan because I feared for them. I felt if they'd not chased down this score, 2 out of 2 losses, no Stokes, no Jofra Archer, I think they might have started to really kind of doubt themselves as a team and as a group. Together, I think Delhi will come back. They're a strong team, and Ricky will get them flying once again. And they'll be, I would think, around the playoffs towards the end. But Rajasthan, delighted for the team. You can see that they've been challenged this last week or so. They've been tested both on the pitch, off the pitch, and then all of a sudden, Chris Morris. I haven't seen him do that often with the bat in hand. I must admit, I've seen him in the Big Bash. I've seen him in the IPL. I haven't seen him as much in South Africa, where I'm sure Sean will tell us he does it on a regular basis. But I've not seen him do it under the stage of what I see tonight, which is big pressure, big price tag, and he struck it magnificently. For Tom Curran, I fear for him in the Delhi team. He might have to sit in the dugout, mixing a few drinks for a few games to get his chance back. He didn't quite get it right in that last over.
He certainly didn't, Sean, but you've mentioned one South African. What about the other, Killer Miller? He's coming to this game, point or two to prove. Obviously, he's done it before in this tournament. We've seen him get 100 as well. But on this occasion, yes, you could turn around and say maybe that third 6 or attempted 6 wasn't necessary. But he had identified that over.
Yeah, it was the over was going to go. Before we get to him, I think there was one innings up. I haven't seen Morris do it too often for us. There's one against England, I think, in Cape Town. I don't know if you remember. It could have been a one-day international where he whacked it at the back end. But he does have that ability, consistency-wise, he struggled with. At the start of the show, I mentioned about Miller in really good touch for South Africa against Pakistan in the one-day series. He looked like he was striking it as good as he has. He hasn't played a lot of cricket. He was in and out of teams. He ended up having COVID when the England team came out at the December. They didn't do the T20s in Pakistan because they were supposed to be coming back. So there's a lot of cricket that he's missed out on. But it was good to see him strike it well here in South Africa. So I knew he was in good touch. And that's always his strategy. He tends to wait for a particular over, much like what Chris Gayle does. You sort of identify your individuals, and then you try and put them under immense pressure. And I think he'll be disappointed at getting out to the one because it almost seemed like it was a slot delivery. Maybe his head was just moving too much at the time. But normally he just deposits those straight back over the bowler's head. So he's also one of those guys that you could see when he was at the wicket with Tavatia. He's one of those guys who, especially with the young guys, they enjoy batting with him. There's other guys who like, give me the strike, I'm going to try and do this job. But he almost gets involved in their innings and gives them some commentary and, gives them some advice. And people just love batting with him. There's certain guys, Vaughnie will tell you that there's certain guys you just love batting with. Myself, I love Mark Boucher and Lance Klusener at the back end because, you just sort of worked off each other, picked up positive vibes. They make cracks about, I'm taking this guy down. And it's just different things. David Miller is one of those guys. So he's a fantastic team man, and he keeps it calm at that stage.
Well, since he's mentioned it, go on, Michael Vaughan. Let's get a name out of you from the past. Who was someone you really enjoyed batting with? Who vibed with you at the non-strikers end?
Trescothick for England. When I used to, at the start of my career, open the batting with him. In county cricket, I used to adore batting with Darren Lehman because he just made batting look so simple, particularly against spinners. You almost felt, and you knew actually, once he got down to the 5th and 6th ball of the over, you might as well just run a single because he worked a way of making sure that he stayed on strike. So I think I once put 240 on with him. I think I got 46. My job really was just to give him strike, and I just had the best view in the house of the non-strikers then. Trescothick and Lehman for me, they were fantastic to bat with.
Yeah, I'm just having a look, Sean, at what Chris Morris said. Of course, they did ask him about the last game. He said, I was going to run that single in the last game. But he said for us to get as close as we did, gave us a lot of confidence. Glad to know that we as a side can win a game from anywhere, any situation. So I think it's the kind of victory that he's alluding to that will really help them going forward, because that earlier loss would have been bitterly disappointing. A guy plays the innings of the tournament probably, and you end up on the losing side. So this was important for them.
Yeah, it was huge. They'd done so brilliantly to chase down, to even get close to chasing down such a big score in the last game. It's a body blow, particularly when probably with about 10 balls to go, it actually looked like they were going to definitely win. So to bounce back in this fashion, it's key. I mean, in the IPL, we always used to talk about how you're going to lose games, but it's when you start losing consecutive games that you get yourself into trouble. And it's the same, from a bowling perspective. We always try to get someone back in. If we've had a bad over, you get someone back in to try and pull it back, because if that momentum builds, you have 2 or 3, you're done. If you have 2 or 3 losses in this tournament, you're done. So it's really as important, as we mentioned, especially on the back of the loss of Stokes.
Now, it's one thing, Michael, to keep your head when you're actually chasing, but spare a thought for the bowling side. And there's 2 points I want to make here. We want to talk about the speeds in a moment, but before that, Michael, if you look at the bowling card and you look at their options, they were probably thinking they were in such a good position, they didn't fast forward till that 20th over. If Ravichandran Ashwin had finished his spell with a left-hander on strike, maybe they wouldn't have had to go to Tom Curran for the final over.
Yeah, and I'm afraid Rishabh, in his second game as captain, he'll probably be doing the press now, and then he'll have a moment in the dressing room where he'll sit down, he'll have a chat with Ricky Ponting, and he'll assess, as you do as a captain, what could you have done differently. And I know hindsight's wonderful. He's probably thinking, why didn't I just bowl Ravi Ashwin just for that one more over against the left-handers? That's the nature of T20 captaincy in particular, that you get it slightly wrong or you just miss your tactics by an over or two and you can lose the game. He's still going into that 18th and 19th over, would have expected the likes of Rabada and Tom Curran to see out that game. He would have expected his 2 bowlers to see out that game. But when you've got a play like Morris that's striking it, and you miss your length, I thought that 6 off Rabada was a fantastic strike. And you could just feel that was a momentum change of the game at that particular moment. And Tom Curran, I mentioned it, he's just not been in great form. He wasn't in great form when he played for England. He just looks like he's doubting himself somewhat. He's a confident young chap. He generally likes it. I just watched him at the start of that last over, and usually his eyes are different. His eyes are like, yeah, I'm having this. I just felt you could see there was just a little bit of probably nervousness because he's not confident at this stage. And with so many players waiting in the wings, you only need one bad bowling performance as a player like Tom Curran. He's probably going to have to wait a few games to get another opportunity because the likes of Nokia will come back in and Ricky will start to probably change it a little bit. But I don't think Delhi should be too despondent. They didn't bat well enough. That's what they'll look at. They didn't bat well enough and they should have won it with the ball in hand. But I guess they just didn't quite get it right in those last 2 overs.
Sean, as a bowler, do you think differently if you're handed the ball for the last over knowing that, well, he has no other option, so he's turning to me, versus, say, an Arshdeep Singh the other night when he was told with 4 overs to go in that strategic timeout, we are going to entrust you with the last over?
Yeah, it is better when you're done with an element of confidence coming from the captain. And when you've been signalled out that that's going to be your job, the death overs will be where you come into bowl, rather than sort of they look around and at some stages, as Ronnie says, you can often see it in the bowler's eyes. If that bowler's not looking at the captain or not trying to get his attention, he doesn't want to be doing the job. So it is a tough one, but I think, that's part and parcel of his job description. He should really be prepared. I think the challenge would have been maybe the ball. I mean, you sweat so much there in Mumbai. There's a little bit of dew on it. So it's not like a clear-cut scenario where you grab a hold of that ball and it feels comfortable in your hand and you realize you can go. And I think at the back of your mind, there's always the thought of, does it slip out because of the sweat? Does it slip out because of the dew? But I do also feel for the coaching staff over the last 3 games. I mean, I don't know. When you're in those environments, at this stage of the tournament, you're not going to say too much because it's a long road still to be chased, and you're going to make sure that you try and keep the positive energy there. But in all honesty, I mean, these guys are being paid some really good money, and they're professionals. They've played at the international level. For them not to get over the line in these last 3 games, all those 3 teams, when it just looked like just normal cricket was required, I think it does give your coaching staff sleepless nights and really does make life difficult for them.
You could see the expressions changing, Michael. I mean, if there was only a match going on where, just imagine you weren't watching what was going on in the middle. You just had cameras in the 2 dugouts. You had Sangakkara like this when David Miller got out. And then suddenly a couple of sixes, one from Unadkat, one from Tipo Morris. And there was Ricky Ponting who was like, he was very grumpy. And he had the biggest smile on his face about halfway through the innings.
Yeah, again, pressure. The pressure of the players, the pressure of the coaching units. I mean, Sean's been in those dugouts where a game or 2 doesn't go your way, and you must feel it as a coach because you have to win games of cricket in the IPL. Ricky won't be too perturbed by it. He'll know that his team will come back. He's confident from last year's performance, confident from the first game. For Kumar Sangakkara, that was a massive win. To get his first win and to know that his team have come through a very, very tricky situation. Let's be honest, in the 17th over, they'd lost the game. They were going to lose by 10 or 15 runs. And it had been 2 losses in 2, and pressure builds. I can only imagine the phone calls or the Zoom meetings that you have to take place in these days with the owners and the investors and how much money are you costing us in commercial deals if you don't win any games. It's a big business, the IPL. I've never been in a dugout, so I can't really give you my experience, but I can see that it means so much, and so it should do. So delighted, actually. And, that's what we need from Chennai tomorrow. We need Chennai to win a game, so everyone's got to win. And that tournament kind of goes down to the wire, not knowing who's going to be that final four. What you don't want is one team to get beaten in the first few games, and it kind of is them against the rest going forward. Delighted that Rajasthan got the win tonight.
Yeah, and I think there was some tactics involved there, and it was, from Delhi's point of view, they did do some things differently. We showed you at the halfway point how Rajasthan used their speeds beautifully, all the slower deliveries, the change-ups that actually got rid of the wickets. So we've put some numbers together for you, and we can see if you can try and spot the differences here, and have a look at some of the wickets that fell for the Rajasthan team. Look at that, 130, 138, 140 for Tewatia. That's what you needed to him. David Miller got a fairly quick one. Tipo Morris was really getting the stuff cranked up until he hit that 6, Sean.
Yeah, he lacks pace on the ball. I think the key why they used the off-cutters so well for Rajasthan was the fact that they were left-handers going across the right-handed batters. Kakisa Rabard, if he turns to a slow ball, it's almost going into Morris's slot. And Curran would be similar. He's got the back of the hand on off cutter. There's nothing that's spinning away, which might have made it difficult for them to whack away to the fence. But I think also later on with the dew and the ball slightly damp, it just skids on even when you do bowl those variations. And that's the art of trying to work out what's going to be good on that surface at that time. But I just think the lengths and some of the deliveries that they bowled in the last 3 overs when Morris was cutting loose just made it too easy for him to get bat on ball and just to get a few over the fence. If he middles you from a decent delivery and part of the plan, you can't have too many problems. But it just seems like they were just not quite on point. And you can, I suppose, expect that in just the second game of the tournament.
Looking at that, go ahead, Mike.
Just on the tactics, that when you know that they need 6s really to get back in the contest, that they didn't go for that wide Yorker line and pat the offside. To get hit for a 6, that wide Yorker line where you've got to kind of slice one over backward third man. It's a very difficult shot. Probably the one ground that you can do it is Mumbai, but I just think you put more into your percentage chance of not getting hit for a 6 if you're going wide and full and saying to Morris, well, pat that offside. You're going to have to play an incredible shot. And if you play a decent shot, you're probably only going to get 1 for it because we'll have plenty of fielders out there. So I was a bit surprised by the tactics. That's what I said. Richard, in that dressing room, he'll be saying to Ricky and some of the senior guys, could I have done anything different? And these are the kind of conversations that Rishabh Pant will be having now as a young captain.
Well, one question we can answer, Sean, and I'm just going to put in there before you make your point, since Michael's made it. Pant has answered one of our questions. He said there was more dew in the second half, hence lesser slower balls. We showed you the graphics. So obviously they would have wanted to do it, but perhaps the execution didn't come out. We were at least 15 to 20 short, which we realized. Positive from this game is how our bowlers bowled in the first half of the chase. Hopefully we learn from this defeat and come out on the other side. So fair enough. Fair play to them. At least they were conscious of the fact that, yes, other than Rabada, maybe some of the others could have been putting in a few more slower balls.
Yeah, that's how we've read it, and I think it's just back to the point that it was maybe skidding on a touch. But I think the point at the back end is, when you've got a clear head, when you've got guys who've done that job quite a bit and they've got a great understanding, is you've got to understand you've got Morris on strike who can be destructive. He can hit the ball out the ground. So how do you get him off strike? How do you give him the 1 and make sure you bowl more deliveries to a nut cut? I know he played that unbelievable shot for 6, which I was very impressed by because I didn't think it could come from anywhere. But the point is, even if you take the leg side field and go in at the boots, or the offside field and go at the wide Yorkers, they flick it away, they get off strike. You can build 2-dot balls. And just the lengths that they bowled at the back end there, I'm just not convinced now. I think if they had to have it again, and obviously they would do it differently because they wouldn't want to win, but I think you do make life a lot easier when you're hitting length with the ball skidding on rather than going for some sort of option and trying to back yourself with a field setting that can grab a hold of anything that goes along the ground.
Interesting. In a ground, we mentioned places like Sharjah, we mentioned Mumbai, we know the Wanderers where the ball flies. It's a ground where you see a lot of 6s, Bangalore as well. It took 36 overs. It was the 36th over of this match when we saw the first 6 being hit, and that was hit by David Miller. Then he hit a second, then came Morris and Unadkat. But that says a little bit about the way this game went, Michael.
Yeah, and it also tells you in T20 cricket that you're never out of it when you're chasing a relatively low total, which it was tonight, because you only need 3 or 4, 5, 6s, then you're right back into the contest. Even when you're 6 and 7 wickets down, the way that the teams pat the batting these days, there's always players down that back end at 8, 9 and 10 that can strike a cricket ball. And it's amazing when you're watching and you I've just sat at home watching the game and you suddenly see a 6 go and then another 6, and all of a sudden that runs per ball ratio, it kind of comes tumbling down. And that's why when it got to the 19th over, you went, whoa, hello. They're still in it. You get a couple of 6s in the next 2 overs and they're going to win the contest if Morris is still out there. So that's why T20 cricket is a great format, because you're never really out of it. There's the odd time when a team gets a monster score and you can't get it. But when they get those pars and just below pars, you're never, ever out it as a chasing side. It only takes one individual to do what Chris Morris did.
That's something that Sanju Samson acknowledged. He said at 42 for 5, we reckon we were out of the game. But that issue of that single is being asked to everyone, Sean. They asked it to Chris Morris. He had one answer. Sanju Samson said, if I play the previous game again, I'll still not take that single to get Morris back on strike, even in the context of seeing what Morris did right now.
Yeah, when you got 100, and what did he have? 120, 122 at that stage. You've seen it so big, and everything you think you can see out the ground. When I watched it, the only thing I was thinking was if he had knocked it to the cover and gone, and then just come back for the second and try to get himself down that other end. Even if Morris had got run out, it just gave the option of being able to knock it on the ground for a 4. But I mean, it was only, what was he, 3 or 4 meters short? And he probably wouldn't have expected the ball to be bowled that wide to him. So I like the fact that he backed himself. And I think the other scenario you've got to understand is that Morris had only been there for 3 balls, I think it was. Whereas tonight, his first 5 or 6 or 10 deliveries, he wasn't at his best. But then he found his feet and started to middle it. So he wasn't in the hitting form. Maybe if the game had been played again now, after what he's done, he might have backed.
Well, it's going to be an interesting dressing room to be in, but I'm sure it's all in good spirit. I'm sure Tipo Morris will have a huge smile on his face, knowing that he's at least started repaying a little bit of that faith. But Michael Vaughan mentioned you want to see every team getting in that points table, and I think it's a good time to have a look at where we stand on the points table. And there you go. Hyderabad, unfortunately, 2 out of 2 looked like on both occasions they could possibly win. So Chennai win tomorrow, they make it just one team without a win. And for Hyderabad's sake, we'll hopefully get them up and running. But look at Bangalore, right up there with 2 wins. They haven't done that too often, probably just twice in the history of this tournament. They've been up there after 2 games. And for the team that won tonight, Rajasthan, well, they're just outside the top 4. That's all clustered with net run rate, but they won't worry about that for the moment. The 2 points, invaluable. Well, it means we have more cricket that lies ahead. And what's our Friday fury going to be? We're going to be right here on Cricbuzz Live looking at Punjab against Chennai. So if Chennai have to win, they're going to have their task cut out, because Punjab are a team that is power-packed and star-studded, as are many of the teams, but they just seem to have that little extra with the likes of KL Rahul being in form. Mayank Agarwal hasn't fired yet. Let's have a quick look at the squad and see if we expect or anticipate any possible changes. We've seen Puran yet to get going, and just so much depth, Michael. Do you see any reason for them to make changes for the moment? Riley Meredith, one of the question marks.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, depending on the pitch, they may look at someone like Moses Enriques as an overseas to bring a bit more all-round, a bit more with the bat, bowl a few cutters maybe. Chris Jordan could replace Riley Meredith. I don't think they'll change too much. They won a game that, they batted so well, and they thought they'd lost it at the end because of an incredible innings by Sanju Samson. But I can't see too much of a change. They look a strong outfit. On most of these teams look so strong when you're looking at all the names, but they look strong. They look like they've got some good options. You've got David Milan that could come in, but don't think they'll replace Chris Gale. Will Chris Gale play every game? No chance, not with his body and his age. He might need a breather at some stage. So David Milan's not a light for light, but he's a high-class T20 player. They've got good options. They'll be a little bit concerned with the way that they bowled. They'll be very concerned with that. So I would think if they're going to make the change, it'd be in the bowling department.
One more clever Caribbean cricketer to consider, Sean, in Fabian Allen. He's a live wire in the field, much like Nicholas Puran is. He can bat anywhere from number 4 down to number 8. And, of course, he provides a bit of that uncanny spin.
Yeah, I think they might get him into the tournament a bit later on, but you don't even be making too many changes. I think that's what they've shown. I think also the form of Deepak Huda is very important for them. We've had a lot of RPLs where he's sort of come in with a few raps, but never really lived up to the expectations. The fact that he started in this fashion is really big for them, because they've got that top 3, and how consistent were they? But there is going to be that odd match where they just don't get it right. So if he can continue to produce at the rate he did, that 20 ball 50 was phenomenal. I think that's an important part for them. I've always felt a little bit top heavy with the batting, and that they do need to get more contributions. Puran, he's played his part at times, but not as consistently as they would want. So it's good to see Deepak Huda coming good as well.
Yeah, there's certainly plenty of depth there. And as we concluded yesterday, it was the kind of game, or the other day, that Punjab won was the typical kind of game last season that they would end up losing. They looked the better side. They would have that big performance. They would have that big innings, but they were on the losing side more often than not. Will it change for them this season? Well, they're up against a pretty formidable side, former champions multiple times over, led by the irrepressible Mahendra Singh Dhoni, and the men in yellow will certainly have a few things to say. No points on the board yet, but they'll want to change that very, very quickly. Just in terms of performance from one game, not really personnel as much as performance, Michael, for them to change.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't great in the field. You know, there's an element that they need to improve. MS Dhoni obviously didn't fire, so he'll want to improve upon his batting with a contribution. But, you know, MS Dhoni, you go through the history of the IPL, will he make a change? No. He'll be the same team. He'll go again. He'll give all the trust in the that went out there the other evening, and he'll say, let's just improve just by 10 or 15%. If it's a pitch like we've seen tonight, it might bring them more into the contest because they're used to playing on these kind of wickets. I know it's a long time ago back in Chennai, but they seem a team that are a 160 kind team. I don't see them ever getting the 220s, 230s. I think they're a 160, 180, and I think they'll have enough skill and obviously a magnificent captain in Dhoni to be able to defend at that kind of total. So they may need a pitch like we've seen tonight where there's just a little bit of action for the ball.
Yeah, for me, Suresh Raina, when they showed that team sheet of their first game, it just seems like the balance is back. I know it seems a little bit odd that just one individual comes back, but it just seems so right. Left-hander combinations as well, all his experience, and he got off to a great start. So, yeah, I think we're going to see some quality from them. I think Moeen Ali gives a nice balance as well in the change-ups there, and Thakur, I was really impressed with, from the last RPL and also his performance he's put in for India. He didn't have a great night the other night, but I'm sure he'll be back he'll have a real think about it. And he's one of those guys who gets the ball to, like we saw tonight, in those first few overs, he has that ability to get it to shape and pick up early wickets. So I'll expect something better from him, but they do just look so much better with rain.
They do, and they don't change very often, but I'll still throw the question at you, since we do have a South African connection in there, in Lungisani, in Gidi. Expect to see him at some point in time. Question 1, question 2, and this is not a quiz, it's just a couple of questions. Sam Curran and DJ Bravo in the team at the same time. You okay with that?
Yeah, I would think you would see Lungi sooner rather than later. It's an interesting one. I got the feeling that last season in particular, that Chennai almost was starting to build things around Sam Curran, which for me was a little bit of a surprise because I think he's a fantastic little package. He'll give you some good overs and he's got that striking ability. But I mean, they were bringing him up top of the order to bowl. He was going at the back end. He was being thrust up the order to go and sometimes pinch hit. And then when they wanted a left-hander, they put him in. I just don't think they should try and rely on him too much. I think he is a good package, and with him and Bravo, particularly on certain wickets, if they get slower, their cutters, they're brilliant, their variations and what they can do. But on a good surface, if it is like that at Mumbai, it might be the option to go with the faster bowler and just to have a little bit of firepower. I think they are very similar. But in saying that, they don't really trust Bravo's batting much these days. He tends to come in really late if he gets in at all.
Yeah, that's not just this franchise. Saw a bit of that in the Caribbean as well, in the CPL. He's a character. He breaks records. He's always there. You can never forget him. But yeah, with the batting, not necessarily the one who's going to come and win you matches from time to time. Will be interesting to see if Dhoni does make a change and when he makes it. But there'll be plenty more talking points tomorrow when we build up to the game. The one talking point that we did have, we had a fun little quiz for Sean Pollock earlier, but we also have our regular date with quizzing with Joy Bhattacharya, who gave us our joy factor question for the day. And let's just refresh your memories. A specific feat that has been accomplished 56 times, and just 56 times in 144 years of Test cricket, thrice by one player in the last 6 years. Name the feat and the person. Sean? We had a chat about it, and
yeah, it was an easy one. I just didn't really want to show off after having got all the questions right at the start of the show. I was trying to leave it for Michael to maybe have a go.
I'll have a go. Is it hat tricks?
No, we're talking batting, not bowling.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's imagine the batsman in Michael Vaughan goes for hat tricks, and the bowler in Sean Pollock starts looking at the batsman. It's carrying your bat through the innings, and Sean will be happy to note that the most recent entrant with 3 times is South African. Dean Elgar against England, against India, and against Australia. Is a gutsy cricketer, isn't he, Sean?
Yeah, he is. I can remember particularly that one against India in 2018. It was a bit of a dodgy surface. I think he got peppered about 6 or 7 times. He was almost willing to throw in the towel because of the amount of times he got pinned. But he was there, he fought hard and batted for a long period. So it was fantastic.
Yeah, certainly was. Another one that comes to mind is Desmond Haynes, who's done it 3 times in his career. But let's quickly go to our winner, who would have spotted that one, and it's Prateek Jade, Prateek 06 Jade. Well done. I think the beauty of Joy changing his stack slightly, just like the Delhi team wanted to change slightly with their bowling department, is that we are getting newer and newer winners. You're not going to spot these questions straight down the list. So well done, Joy.
Yeah, he's
Well done
changed. There was always something involved in the game that was being played. It used to be one of the players or someone on the panel or something, but I mean that had absolutely no relevance. That's what made us think so hard.
Yeah, the other day we had a good one. We had Bairstow play, and it was a 51 jersey dedicated to his father, the year of his father's birth. So yeah, from time to time he needs to keep those deliveries going on a beautiful batting surface that is the world of quizzing. But one more reminder to all of you, whether you like batting, bowling, or any aspect of cricket, it is Cricbuzz Plus, which you need to subscribe to. Of course, come and watch all our shows, but for that little bit extra, Cricbuzz Plus is where you need to be. That's all we have on the show today. Long day, but yet again a twist in the still. Thank you, Michael Vaughan. Thank you, Sean Pollock. We'll see all of you very soon on Cricbuzz Live, brought to you in association with our fantasy partners, I11 Circle.